quite relaxed there for a moment, going, oh, when is this going to start? And then realized that was my job. So I better kind of get up and do that part of the job. So firstly, welcome again to day 3 of the 11th International Summer School. And today the session is going to be on the respect for family life, perspectives of parents and children. And our first speaker is Fatma, and she is come from all the way from Kenya on Monday, and trust me, we've just had this conversation. She's feeling much more chirpy than me, and I came all the way from Galway, so this isn't a great start. So she's currently the Regional Coordinator for Inclusion Africa and the Executive Director of the Kenyan Association of the Intellectually Handicapped, and a mother to a daughter of a child with an intellectual disability. She serves on the board of the African Disability Forum, which is the regional body that advocates for persons with disabilities and their families in Africa. She has previously served as a board trustee of the National Council of Persons with Disabilities and a board member at the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, Inclusion Africa. And she's also a member of Inclusion International and the Catalyst for Inclusive Education Africa Response Team. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to actually welcome Fatma to speak to you.
So, thank you very much for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Fatma. I'm a parent. I have a daughter with an intellectual disability. When I was told, or when I was asked to talk about, the right of children with disabilities growing up in a family, I did a lot of reflections. And the first reflections that I had were my own personal reflections as a mother, as a family member, and reflections of me and my family then raising my daughter Jen with an intellectual disability. And all, the struggles, all the little cries that we had behind closed doors, and all the little victories that we used to celebrate that Jen could do at that point in life when she was still young. And people couldn't understand why we used to make a fuss when maybe Jen learned how to button up her shirt. And to many people, these are, these are things that you should do, and they just couldn't understand why we were making such a big fuss about it. Again, I had reflections from my professional point of view, being a leader of an organization, a family-based organization of people with intellectual disabilities and their families, and all the meetings that we've had with family members around kitchen tables, under trees in the hot, scorching Savannah sun, in schools where we are trying to advocate for the inclusion of our children with disabilities, and in the local neglected sports ground where we had to form alliances with parents of children without disabilities to start conversations around inclusion in the community. And therefore, for me, this presentation is really going to borrow a lot from my own experiences as a mother, and also the experiences of the organization that I led for the last 13 or so years before I transited into Inclusion Africa, which is a regional-based family organization of people with intellectual disabilities working in 18 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And apart from the experiences that I will share, mine and the organizational ones, I'll also share a very captivating report that together with the Disability Rights International, we did in Kenya from 2016 to 2018, looking at infanticide of children with disabilities in Kenya. And after distressing you a lot, I will end up my presentation on a very high note, just to give you some positive things that are happening on the ground that we are seeing right now. So to start with, I will give a brief background of the Kenya Association for the Intellectually Handicapped. It is an organization, a family-based organization of people with intellectual disabilities and their families. It was founded in the mid-1990s by a group of family members and professionals, and mainly teachers and doctors, But due to the disability situation at that time in the country, it was more on the medical approach and the charity approach. And therefore, there was a lot of power struggles between family members and professionals. And, the professionals came in at that time, and what they were telling the parents is that, we know the challenges that you're going through with your children, and what we are going to do is we're just going to fix up those challenges. And the parents took a back seat and let the professionals do the fixing that they were promising they were going to do. So fast forward, in 2004, the organization didn't do much. The parents sat back, the professionals didn't have any ideas on how they were going to make this right a reality. And in 2004, a group of us, by then I was a very young parent, came in with a lot of anger and a lot of, a lot of challenges that we were facing raising our children with disabilities at that point in time. And we wanted to bring about change in our communities. We wanted our children with disabilities to be included in the families and in their own communities, and to be part and to belong in their communities. And therefore, our anger brought a group of parents together, and one of our founding principles then, and still is up to now, is that children with disabilities must be raised in their families and in their communities. They have to be members of their societies. They have to live with their siblings and their peers and enjoy the same rights in their communities as children without disabilities. Our work is anchored then on inclusive communities and how we as family members can be part of the building of the inclusive communities. We strongly believe in the voices of children with disabilities, in self-advocates. We strongly believe in the voices of the families. And over the years, this is a movement we've been trying to build and nurture and to change the narrative that, people with disabilities and their families have the power and the expertise to bring about inclusive communities. We do also have very strong principles that families need to be supported in their caring roles. That if me as a parent am not supported, then what will happen to my child with a disability? And we also believe that families raise and nurture the next generation. They create the basis of belonging and community. Families carry our cultures forward. This is a very strong belief that we have. We do a lot of programs and a lot of projects, but one of our very strong pillars in the community is the fact that we build a movement. And we do this through the formation of local parent support groups and local self-advocacy groups. So to date, we have around 150 local parents groups and 7 strong self-advocate groups in Kenya. We strongly know that, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. And therefore, we do understand that Kenya, we do believe and we know that Kenya is very diverse. And therefore, each local family group and each local self-advocacy group is very contextualized to their own issues within their own communities. We respect their cultures, we respect their traditions, their religion, and we don't go there to enforce things for them. But what we take to them is the human rights, the social model of disability, and therefore encouraging our family members and self-advocates to work with their local communities and to really appreciate the good culture that we have in our diversity, but shun away and strongly oppose any negative cultures that hinder the full and effective participation of children with disabilities in their communities. So there's a famous African saying that says, it takes a village to raise a child. We totally support that. And it should not exclude children with disabilities. Children belong in their communities. But when we have negative cultures that say children with disabilities are possessed by devils, or they are cursed, and therefore they need to be killed in their communities, then we say no to that. So is this right a reality in our communities? So enormous pressure is placed on families of children with disabilities, and with lack of supports and services, then parents of children with disabilities are left with very little option, and the only option sometimes available is either to take your child to an orphanage or to a residential school, which probably is about 300-400, sometimes 200 kilometers away from home. And families who are poor really have to struggle on what to do with their children with disabilities. Unfortunately, we see a lot of, people coming in with a lot of goodies, promising parents that, by taking your child away, we are going to support your child, to live independent and full lives. And we say no to such interventions because we do believe if my child with a disability has to be empowered, even me as a family member, I have to be empowered. So any intervention that will remove my child away from me, take them 200-300 kilometers away and bring them back, already they're destroying a family. And when such children come back home, then they don't have relationships with the families. And there's a lot of, tension and fights between children and their families. Again, we see a lot of people taking advantage of the vulnerability of parents or families of children with disabilities. And sometimes we see, groups of people coming in to say, we are going to pray for your child so that the disability can go away. We are going to do A, B, C, D so that, you don't have problems or burden anymore. And we say no to this. So Article 23 of the Convention is very clear, and it recognizes the right of children to family. Article 23(4) requires state parties or governments it says the state parties shall not remove a child from a family on the basis of disability, whether it's the child who has a disability or one or two parents who have a disability. And therefore it gives remedies and says, in cases whereby there are abuses or neglect within the family, then the child should be placed within the kinship, the larger family. And if that is not available, then it should be foster care. But he doesn't talk about institutionalization. So again, when we look at the general principles, one of the principles talk about the evolving capacities of children with disabilities and the right for children with disabilities then to maintain their own identities. The Convention on the Rights of Children also talks about respecting the evolving capacities of children. But sometimes we don't see this in reality on the ground. So where do we draw a line to say, a child has grown and now is an adult? We see sometimes in residential schools or segregated schools whereby 25 plus years old persons with disabilities are placed in the same schools with 6-year-old. And there's a lot of violation of rights of children with disabilities and adults with disabilities happening in such setups. So the reality on the ground again, between 2016 and 2018, we did a report, and it was through a 2-year investigation period that we went out and spoke to families, and we spoke to people running orphanages and governments, and we really wanted to know, why is it that people are so adamant to the fact that children with disabilities need to be raised and must be raised in their families and their communities? So we did this in collaboration with the Disability Rights International, and Eric is not here today, and we published it on the 27th in September 2018, and the title of the report is Infanticide and Abuse, Killing and Confinement of Children with Disabilities in Kenya. So the report found that mothers of children with disabilities in Kenya are pressured to kill their children or abandon them in institution. And we talked to about 90 mothers, and we talked to about 3,400 children in orphanages. And we found harrowing experiences, very disturbing experiences that the mothers shared with us. So in one part of Kenya, in the Maasai community, we spoke to a group of about 43 mothers. And all the 43 mothers told us at some point in their lives, they were forced either to kill their children with disabilities or go away from that community, just leave the community and go. So one of the mothers said that she was told by the village elder, so once her child was born with visible disabilities, she was given this injection, and she was told to inject her child on the head so that the child could die, a slow death. And she refused. After 1 month, the village elders came back again, and she was given the same, syringe. And what she realized is that the syringe had battery acid in it, and she was being told to inject her child with a disability. So when she refused the second time, she was told to leave the community, and she had to leave for the sake of her child and go and look for somewhere else that she could live. In the same community, we found out that, when a child is born with visible disabilities, the mother is forced to give the child cow fat. So immediately the child is born, the mother is forced to give them cow fat. And if she refuses, then the traditional birth attendant is going to do that. And the child will just die. So and more mothers came out to say, we were forced to do this in our own communities. And when they said no, they were excommunicated from their communities. And most of these mothers are single mothers, struggling, raising up their children with disabilities, with little supports, with no information, with no community-based services, to the point that some mothers are saying, I've thought about committing suicide and even killing myself and my child and just, and get out of this world. I mean, it's too much. It's too a heavier burden to bear. But through the formation of parent support groups, we are giving hope. We are restoring hope to the families of children with disabilities. We are telling them, united, we can bring about changes in our own communities. So, some of the statistics in the report say that, social isolation is a reality for mothers who keep their children with disabilities in Kenya. Over half of the surveyed women responded that they feel alone, that's 54%, and sad, 51%. A great majority, at 72%, stated that their families and/or their communities rejected them and their children with disabilities. 1 in 5 women say that the father of their child abandoned them, and when he found out that the child had a disability. So this is one of the children orphanages that we visited. And the situation is very deplorable in the children orphanages. So as you can see from the picture, children with disabilities were forced by the workers in the orphanages to feed their fellow peers in the orphanages. So in one of the rooms that we walked in, the light bulb was coated with bed bugs, with dead bugs and dirt, and was a potential fire hazard. The program director reported that the children are locked in the room at approximately 6 p.m. each night, and the door was not open sometimes until 7 a.m. in the morning, sometimes. So there are times it's open at 10, there are times it's open at 11 a.m., depending on the mood of the workers in the orphanages. So the door to the room was of solid steel with a latch bolt. If there were fire, the children would perish before assistance could be provided. This is the situation in some of the orphanages in Kenya. And before I go to this hope, we talked to one of the directors in the orphanages. And when we walked in, she thought maybe we were funders and we were going to support the work that she was doing. And she was telling us all these marvelous stories, the way she's rescuing children from the communities, the way she's enticing parents and families in the communities to give away their children with disabilities because of poverty, and she had the solutions. And the shocking thing that we found out was that very big donors are supporting some of these projects of institutionalization of children with disabilities in orphanages. And our big question then was, how can we start conversations around Article 32 of the CRPD on international cooperation and create spaces for children with disabilities, for persons with disabilities and their families to start engaging directly with processes on international cooperation, because such cooperations are very key in building inclusive communities. And therefore, this is something that now we're starting to do to inform our parents, that you have a say, to inform the self-advocates, to inform communities that we have a stake in this. And when the director found out that we were from disability rights movement, she chased us away. And the next time we went there, she didn't want to open the doors for us, because there is no way she believed that children with disabilities belong to the communities. And for her, this was just like one of those. And by the way, she doesn't even know the children by their name. It's like their case numbers. So it's like they're not even people, yeah? Totally stripped their personhood and their childhood. But there is hope. There's a lot of work we are doing in the communities. So like in the first picture on my right, this is one of the parent support groups. And they paused for a meeting after continuously engaging with the local school to accept children with disabilities. And finally, when they did, they say, yay, we have done it. And our children with disabilities will go to the same schools. In the second picture on the left, the lady in the bluish dress, she's one of our board members. And she started an inclusive school in her own communities, where children with and children without disabilities are going to the same schools. And she's been struggling with her son who has significant disabilities to access services in her community, but it was impossible for her. But immediately she opened the school, even the local education offices are referring children to that school, and yet they are not supporting it. So we see a lot of, families starting up initiatives in their communities, all in the goodwill of including children with disabilities in their communities. So in my picture on the right, I have two children on the swings. So the first one in the pinkish top is a girl known as Angel, and the young boy in the blue t-shirt was one of the children that we rescued in the orphanages. And what happened is that Angel's mother said, I'm going to take Brian to my home. It doesn't matter whether I have a child with a disability, but we cannot let, as families, we cannot let other children stay in the communities. So more and more we are seeing our own family members taking in an extra child from the orphanage and giving them hope and voice in the family and in the community. Then the picture on my left is a group of self-advocates who are ambassadors in their own communities, talking to families, going to schools, going to churches, talking to people in the communities on the right of children with disabilities to be included in the community. So the lady far on my right in the long dress, that's Joy Rehema. She was part of the project, the Voices Project here in Galway University. And Joy has done amazing work, in talking about legal capacity and why it's important for children from a very young, early age to be included in, decision-making processes and to be supported to make decisions. And all the other three self-advocates are doing amazing work, changing perceptions and changing situations in their own communities. So thank you very much.
Thank thank you very much, Fatma. One of the things that kind of struck me about your paper was you opened with this idea, the kind of commonalities that all parents have. You know, that first time a child does something, the first time, in your case, your daughter did her buttons. We all are excited about those firsts with our children. And I suppose then that's when everything kind of went slightly different. The differences then came to the fore, and the terrible pressures that some parents are put under that some of us never experience. And I think it's really important that we hear about those experiences and how we can change those experiences. So thank you very much for that, Fatma. The next speaker up is John Bosco Kannamma. And before I introduce John, I'm just going to explain, I suppose, the format as well after that. After that, we have a youth panel. And Clíona de Bhailís from the CDLP will facilitate that and will introduce the speakers at that point. So for now, I'll introduce John Bosco Kannamma. Dr. John Bosco Kannamma is the Director of the Centre for Deaf Studies in Trinity College, Dublin. He's the Board of Directors of the Irish Deaf Society, and he's been involved in many community and working groups within the civil service and other government bodies to monitor the progress of the deaf and disabled people in society. He sits on the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, Disability Advisory Committee, and he has been named the Language Ambassador of the Year 2015 by the European Language Label. So we look forward to hearing from John now.
Here I am, I'm signing. So we're going to change things a little bit. Just to let you know, there will be a bit of a language delay because I'm working through a sign language interpreter. I may stop signing, my interpreter may keep speaking to catch up with me, just so that's clear. I really am so honored to have the invitation to present here on families, particularly coming from the deaf perspective. There's a lot of issues that have cropped up throughout this week. To be honest, today and yesterday, I learned more and more, particularly Fatma. Your presentation really was an incredibly powerful impact on me. So now I'm going to come from my expertise, which is the deaf side of things. I'm not very familiar with other disability groups. I will start with a little bit of the boring statistics, because sometimes it can be very difficult to get the full picture through these statistics. So I'm going to give you the information first, and then I'll go into more detail. Maybe some of you have attempted to learn Irish Sign Language. This is the sign for family in the picture and what I'm signing at the moment. This is the letter F. It's an English influence with the letter F represented on the hand to represent family. It's really an incredibly complex issue when you look into it in depth. I myself, I am deaf, but I am born to a hearing family. Some of you are like, what do you mean by a hearing family? Well, what it means is that in my family, in history, there has never been a deaf individual until I was born. So when I was born, my parents were unsure of what to do. Now, my family were incredibly Catholic, so I am the 11th generation of Catholicism, but the first deaf sign language user in my family. So of course, in the past, what parents did is they asked professionals what to do. And my family didn't really have any capability or understanding of how to challenge what professionals said. So it's very difficult to go in depth in such a short space of time. So I'm going to give you things really to think about and further research yourself at home. I'm really hoping you'll get an idea of what I'm trying to talk about. One issue I feel is very interesting is endogamy, excuse me. So that's about people marrying within their own communities. I have to be clear that I'm talking about the Irish situation and the attitude of Irish Sign Language within families, and the attitude coming from professionals around that is incredibly interesting. So we're going to take a look at the census data from 2016. I'm not going to go into this in depth, but this just gives you a snapshot. So if we take a look at the first box in the top left, it's a very medically written question. What is your deafness or serious hearing impairment? And then if we take a look at the ages, this is under 20, and there are 5 categories there. I myself, I'm deaf, so it would mean, that parents would write on behalf of their children this aspect, the deafness or serious hearing impairment. Then we take a look at this box at the bottom, which is about Irish Sign Language use. And we can see it's just under 10% that's represented here that use sign language. Now, I have to be clear that in this 436, this is not all deaf people representative. So the statistics are really limited. I'd say this really, this looks representative of 10% of what's actually in these children, the children's statistics, but really I would say it's probably less. This is really regarding Irish Sign Language, access to Irish Sign Language. It's really clear that it's quite low and that we're quite behind in terms of sign language usage across the country. And this is because the medical influence has really stymied the growth of Irish Sign Language. When we then take a look at the box on deaf or individuals with hearing impairment living alone in private houses, aged 35 to 64, you could take a look that it's approximately 5,000, but it's very hard to see this as an actual number because it's such a general question. I think we need more work on disaggregating information. So now we're gonna stop talking about numbers. Enough of that, let's move on. In the deaf community, there are two aspects. There are children who are born to deaf parents and hearing parents. I've traveled most of Europe, and there's always three questions that I'm asked. And it always comes back to my fluency of sign language. You're fluent in sign language. Are your family deaf? My answer is always no. You have deaf siblings? Again, my answer is no. The third question is, did your family have sign language at all? And I say no. But what's interesting is no matter where I go, these three questions are always asked. And this is world round. I'm asked these questions no matter where in the world I am. You see, we have our relay interpreter at the front who's wearing black. He himself is from a deaf family. There is a tradition of sign language within his family. I myself have not got that tradition, so we are from different backgrounds. And we've been brought up differently. How our families see us has been different. When parents grow up, when parents have kids, they always want the same thing for their children. But when it's hearing parents with deaf children, they don't know what to do, so they seek advice from medical individuals who always go for fixing the issue rather than providing supports. I think we need more research and discussion around this, but when deaf individuals, if they have a partner who's also a sign language user and they bring it to their hearing family, the family's always incredibly uncertain and cold. They're very slow to accept this. My family at this point, you know, I have a very strong personality, so it was what I wanted, so my family was very open to that, but other families have been incredibly cold and have often said, no, you should not marry someone who's deaf, you should marry someone who's hearing. So it's very interesting to see how culture influences things and how that can affect the rights of deaf individuals to build and have their own right to family life. Deaf children, 95% of them are born into hearing families, and that's a fact. Now, a lot of individuals think that deaf people are born into deaf families, that it's genetic, but that's quite often less the case. Really, it's only 5% of deaf individuals who are born into deaf families. And they often see themselves as having a burden because those who are born into hearing families look up to them as role models. They're carrying on the culture, and that's only 5%. Now, as Fatma said, there is that culture that's carried on via your family and via your community. And most culture, there is a vertical culture transition, so it is brought down generationally. But deaf culture is not vertical, it's definitely horizontal, because 5% is way too small to carry on this culture as the years go on. So what happens is, when we say vertical, we mean it's brought down from family to family, but in the deaf world, what happens is you meet individuals who are from deaf families, and they teach you as a peer what it means to have deaf culture and a deaf identity. If I had gone to a mainstream school, I wouldn't have access to sign language or that culture, so I wouldn't have fostered that identity. The fact that I went to a deaf school gave me such an incredibly strong foundation that gave me that culture, that gave me that identity, and that came from school. One challenge in modern society is deaf schools are closing because of this mainstreaming movement, but what we're losing is our culture and identity. In the deaf community, if there's a deaf individual who wants to marry a hearing person, often the deaf community is like, are you sure? You know, they have that coldness in the same way a hearing family can have a coldness when you bring a deaf partner into the family. Now, this culture I'm talking about, this is strong in the Western world, but I'm not sure about Asia or Africa, what the situation is there. This is me coming from the Western perspective. So, I have siblings who I chat to. By the way, my wife, I myself am from Roscommon. I don't know, the GAA last Sunday was a great win for me as a Roscommon man. Maybe a contentious thing to say here, but I've been jumping up and down ever since. My wife, she's a Dublin woman. She herself is deaf. And her family really, my family was like, oh, you're marrying a Dublin girl. That was their attitude, right? But, you know, from my family, generationally, it had been in Roscommon, we've been marrying from people from Roscommon. So Dublin was the issue, not the fact that she was deaf. Now, approximately, these are not exact statistics, these are my observations. So 80% of deaf individuals have a relationship with deaf partners. The reason is they have this ease of communication and language, and not just communication, it's also culture, identity, understanding the background and the situations we've gone through. There are some articles, one from America, it said that 90%, but that is quite old research. In Sweden, it's funnily, they said they had 2 counties they did some research in, and one county it was 99%, and the other it was only 10%, which was interesting. And then in Bali, in Indonesia, they did some research, and there were a high population of people who were deaf there, but because of that, a lot of people had sign language users, and I think it was 57% from 10 different tribes were marrying within their tribes, and were still there, and that was interesting. There is a family tradition. I know in Ireland there are 5 traditionally deaf families, but I also know that in the UK and in America it's 10, 12, or 13 generations of deafness. So, and they do feel that burden to try pass on that tradition. You know, there's often joyous situations when a deaf family have deaf kids, and medical professionals always approach them quite negatively. Oh, we're sorry, your child is also deaf. Oh, thank you for the time. In Ireland, I've asked, and there's been a different experience. When a child is born deaf, there's a lot of concern and almost stigma around it, but in the UK and America, it's very different, it's more open. Historically, deaf individuals have been told not to use. Yes, so one example have been criticized or discouraged from marrying internally. One famous individual is Alexander Graham Bell, whose wife was deaf, and he was trying to stop deafness in a way. Also in Ghana, there's a reference to marriage, and it was, you know, eugenic practices that were in law, that deaf individuals could not marry other deaf individuals. Now, I can't speak for other countries, but in the Irish situation, they are marrying, they are marrying deaf individuals, but I do feel we need more research and work on this. So talking about the attitudes of sign language, so we have the zero-sum game attitude. There's this lose-lose. It's very much you can have one or the other, but you can't have both, sign language and spoken, and this is from the medical influence. So this week, I think there's been some similarities. A lot of people say, well, it's either one or the other, but if we had both, it would be better for everyone. And that's something that's across the disability movement. And then one book written by Matthews in 2018, he interviewed hearing individuals, and on a about hearing parents who had deaf children and their experiences, and a lot of them had said, well, actually, medical professionals told me not to use sign language, and that's what happened. Now, my parents, I was lucky, I came through a different way, but you know, it still wasn't satisfactory to what it should be. Then Napoli et al., they said there were ethical issues for medical professionals. It's not just about communication, it's about the partnership, the development, the family relations that can be lost if sign language or the medical approach is just strictly adhered to. To give you an example, at Christmas time, this is really a special time in Ireland traditionally. You know, and really the deaf community, they only go home to their hearing family for 1 or 2 hours and then they leave. And the reason is they don't have a connection with their family because of this medical perspective. Now the hearing individuals, they go home to their families, they stay for a week and they're so happy to be home and with their family. Deaf individuals leave as quickly as possible because there is no connection. Access to ISL would have built a relationship that I think was lost, and endogamous patterns would have been accepted and better understood by families. This is interesting. In the south of Ireland, in the Republic, there is one deaf mother with her hearing child, and they do have a very strong relationship via sign language, but the mother had some very personal challenges and felt it was very difficult to look after the child, so put the child up for foster care, temporary foster care. The child was put with a hearing family who didn't have any sign language. And over time, what happened, obviously a relationship developed and the child came back to their mother after the temporary care and had lost communication with their mother. The HSE didn't see that as a problem. Our national healthcare system didn't think that was a problem. They just saw the right to protection, but they didn't think of the mother's rights and her culture and her identity and how she had brought that up in her child and how it was lost. You know, so we really have to, the child's rights are so important, but as is the mother's. You know, children are very important and vulnerable, but we have to protect the mothers too. Sorry, I'm really trying to go through everything briefly and quickly. I've just been marked with 5 minutes left, but I hope I've given you an overview of the situation. In Ireland, we have an organization called TUSLA, and they are responsible for children in public settings. This is for short-term respite situations. They're responsible for it. And often parents who are deaf, their child go through TUSLA, and the children are deaf themselves are then may be put up for foster care, and then the families don't have sign language and they lose that culture, and they don't have communication with their foster parents, and this can often be fought for to be made permanent even though there is no ISL there for the family or for the child. TUSLA has often asked me to become permanent, to advise and be there more, but I can't because I'm incredibly busy. But then there are some families that have LOV. Some of you may know what this is. LOV is like baby sign. And TUSLA put the children in with families who know LOV, but that's not a full sign language. And there's that child's rights are being denied because of access to language are not being fulfilled. I have one individual who will be coming to me for short-term respite in the summer, and the child is really looking forward to it, and the TUSLA are pressuring me to extend this to maybe become permanent, but I can't. But the child is coming because they know they will have an adult, a role model who will have sign language and that culture and that identity. And really, that's everything. Thank you for your attention. I hope it was clear. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. Firstly, I just wanted to kind of comment was that one of the things that John's paper highlighted was the very positive cultural identity amongst the deaf community and how that was being, I suppose, impacted negatively by the actions of professionals within Irish society. And I think that was something that kind of speaks to the necessity to educate Irish professionals and medical professionals in particular. But also one of the elements of John's paper is that while he was talking about deaf culture in Ireland, the similarities between his talk and Fatma's talk were striking. They both discussed the parents' desires for the best for their children. They both discussed the idea of parents looking for answers, and the influence of medical professionals on those family lives, and how significant those influences were, if not always positive, that they were always quite a significant influence. So it does seem that that's something that we need to kind of address, is the impact of professionals on the lives of families with people with disabilities. I'm going to hand you over now to Clíona de Bhailís from the Centre for Disability Law and Policy, and she's going to chair and facilitate the youth panel. And Clíona is also going to introduce each of the speakers in turn. So we'll hand you over to Clíona now.
I'm really pleased to be joined this morning by... Am I working?
No.
Okay, we'll try this again.
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks, everyone. I'm really pleased to be joined this morning by Mariana Comacho from Costa Rica. She's a 28-year-old young woman who is very passionate about project management, human rights, and did an internship with the National Council for People with Disabilities. She's also an activist and a member of META, and is currently studying for a master's degree in International Law of Human Rights at the University of Peace, I believe. To her right is Abby Smyth. Abby is from Galway. She is almost 18, I think, is what her bio says, and attends Merlin College here in Galway. In 2017, Abby received an award for overcoming adversity, and in 2018 then went on to start a blog about her life as a person with a physical disability. And you might see in Abby's bio that she says, yes, sometimes things can be a struggle, but we can also just have as much crack as anyone else. And for the international friends in the audience, that means fun in this instance. And to Abby's right is Alan Fay. Alan is 22 years old and is currently attending the Irish Wheelchair Association, where he's learning independent living skills. Alan is also a member of EPIC, which is a foundation for empowering people in care, and he's on their youth council. And he's very passionate and a very strong advocate for young people with care experience and people with disabilities. So thank you all for joining me this morning. I'm really pleased to meet you all in person. We've been having a few chats in the lead up to this over phone and Skype and different things so we can get to know each other. And some of you have been here throughout the week, and you've heard about a lot about different kinds of family. So whether they're big families, small families, biological families, or families of choice, we've encountered lots of different types of families this week. So to start with, I might ask you to tell me a little bit about what family means to you, and I might start with you, Mariana.
Okay. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm Costa Rican, and so my mother language is Spanish. So I apologize if I don't use correct English in this case. Family is a space for human interactions to search understanding and to support what we can finally achieve our goals. I want to talk about two kinds of family in my case. One is my biological family, parents, siblings, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins, my extended family as well. So we usually get together in almost all the family's activities. I get involved usually. And then, but therefore I had access to education opportunities and labor opportunities. I always, sometimes I felt overprotected, especially for my grandparents, because they can, for them it's hard to understand that I can be as much as independent that I'm really right now. And for the other side, I have an active family, which are all the activists of human rights of people with disabilities in Costa Rica. Especially, I want to talk about META, which is a Latin American movement of people with and without disabilities. META is called We Are All in Action, and there the idea is we are part of the Inter-American Institute of Non-Disability and Inclusive Development, and that institute has been already working on the draft of the CRPD when the CRPD was ratified by the UN General Assembly. And the idea is to analyze why we have been faced as young people in several countries in Latin America. How can we be more independent? What are our rights? And how we can be self-advocacy and activists in our own countries.
Thank you, Mariana. Abby,
Well,
about
in
your
my
family?
family, there's me. At home, there's just me and my mom. But to me, family is more than that because when I go to school, I have SNAs and my friends, and they're the people that enable me to do things or be independent. Like, I know if I go out with my friends, they'll have no problem helping me to do things or getting things for me or things like that. And I think that's important for your family. They enable you more than they encourage you to do things and stuff like that.
Yeah, your family can also be your support in lots of different ways. And that can be people who you're actually related to and people who you're not, I suppose.
Yeah.
Alan, what about you? What does family mean to you?
Basically, it's very similar to what Abby said there. Family is kind of a broad, let's say, a broad area. Family can be your mom, your dad, but also family can be PAs and friends. Like, they may not be your biological family or your foster family, but they're family in a special way to you. In terms of, as Abby says, I have loads of friends that would not question me if I asked for help. And I think family is the most important thing around the world, because without family, I don't think anyone could survive, basically.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on that even a few times already this week. So when we were preparing for this panel, we had a few chats about what family was for me and for you guys, as we've talked about. And I think based on that, we've heard about how some of us have lots of people with disability in our family, and some of us might be the only ones. And I think that's something actually we share across this panel. For me as well, I'm the only one with my kind of disability, certainly with almost any in my family group. So what was that like for you guys? Is that something that you think you thought about, or something that you'd like to share? We might start with you this time, Abby.
Well, I'm the only one in my family, but that means a lot to me because I get to teach my family or my little cousins that are coming up, growing up. To them, when they see someone in the shop, they're not going to see as different, because to them, they're just like Abby, or they're just, And I think that's important because I also feel like parents or whoever teaches you at home, they don't teach enough of what it is, as in I might see someone in the shop and their child will be asking questions, but they'll just say shush, or I don't mind if you come up and ask questions, or I don't mind if you tell them right there in front of me, it's okay. It's not something to fighting down. So it makes me happy that I get to teach them that it's not a scary thing, and to them it will never be, because to them it's just like me.
I think that's really important. Alan?
Well, I'm the only person with a disability in my family. And again, similar to Adi, they're not afraid to ask me questions, and I'm not afraid to answer them. But as I said, like, I'm not afraid to answer those questions, but when I'm in shops, I find people will talk to the person that's with me in the shop instead of Alan. Like, and that really frustrates me because I know I can speak, so it really frustrates me and bugs me. Like, I'll just give you one example. I was in the shop with my granny one day, and this, I won't say old woman, but she was quite old. Yeah. And she says to my granny, how old would he be now? And my granny says, well, I found it quite funny actually. My granny says, he's not dead, ask him. And then she kind of, and then I told her my age, and she kind of just walked away then. So it really, like, I want to kind of educate people. If you see a person with a disability, don't assume just because you see the chair that they can't speak or that they can't interact, because that's not the case. Yeah, as Clíona said, I'm a very passionate disability activist. Like, I have my own blog on social media. I update my own blog if I come towards any obstacles. I write it and basically complain. So I just really started that page as an experiment, but the response I've got from it has been amazing. Like, I didn't expect so many people to basically engage, like, with the page, but I'm so glad that not just I have the same problem. Lots of people with disabilities have the same problem as I do, like, in terms of accessibility, getting into shops and stuff like that. It's quite difficult, and I find it difficult to go abroad a lot of the time because it's hard on me physically, as well as my grandparents. It's hard on them too. My disability is also their disability, because, and you might say, why did you say that? Because they have to kind of find the best way for me to enjoy what I love to enjoy. So it's quite hard as a person with a disability, but my objective in life is not to give up. Because if you give up, there's no point in kind of continuing, because it's really basically you're in charge of your own self. Nobody's in charge of you. And I'd just like to thank Clíona for this opportunity, and to thank everyone that has supported me out through these past few years, because without the people around me, I don't think it'd be as easy or as enjoyable as it has been. So I'd just like to thank all the people around me for the opportunity.
And thanks very much for coming down, Alan. So, Mariana, what does having a disability, what was that like for you? Whether it's your biological family or your activist family or any of the others that you mentioned earlier.
Okay, in my biological family, I am in my nuclear family. I'm the only one with disability, but I also have some cousins with intellectual disability in my extended family, and I have learned a lot of them too. And in my active family, we have, and I want to take the words that Fatma told us before about inclusive education, because we had developed as Meta a project with UNICEF in Uruguay, and where young people with and without disabilities get aware of what disability means when disability children are inside the schools. So it works on public schools, and it was a really interesting project so far, because they get aware that their differences as young people with disabilities and without disabilities are not as much. We also have similarities, and we can work together through those similarities. So it's kind of why we don't fight for more inclusive education schools and universities and high schools in our countries to promote that. For example, I also have I have a cousin of 2 years old, and once I fall down my bed, and for the first time he noticed that the wheelchair is not part of me. And he was like scared, and he couldn't speak at that moment, so he called my mother and told her, Uncle Anna, and he grabbed her to my house, to my room, and pointed out where I was on the floor, and I was still laughing because his face was like, oh, you fell down, right? And I realized at that point that he unconsciously is getting an inclusive children, because for him, a wheelchair is nothing strange. And as Abby and Alan said, usually parents takes away children when they comes to you because they feel curious about the wheelchairs, or about they haven't seen us before. And usually parents take them away. And what that means, it means that you are putting fear on them and that situation without you notice that unconsciously. So when they grow up, they feel fear, and they do not know how to interact with people with disabilities.
Thank you. So finally, the theme of this morning's session is the rights of children with disabilities to be raised in your families. So can you tell us about your experience of this, or how is it important for you to be raised within your family? I might start with you this time, Alan.
I suppose I lived with my mom and dad for most of my life. When I came into my grandparents' care, I wasn't too sure of the reason why I was put in that situation, but I knew my mom and dad were kind of not in the right place, let's say. So when I first met social workers, I wasn't too sure of what they were there for, but as time went on, I kind of realised, okay, this is what they're there for. And when I kind of went into my grandparents' care, it didn't really take me that much time to settle in, because I knew I was going to hit a member of my family, so it kind of wasn't too difficult in that sense. And my grandparents have been so supportive. Like they've went above and beyond for me. Like they can't do anymore, and I like to thank them so much for kind of taking me on board, because as a person with a disability, it's not an easy job to look after a person with a disability, and I can see that every day. But my granny and granddad love me with all their heart, and I love them. So it's not easy, but we get through it, like most families do. And in the future, I hope to have my own family, but I know that might be difficult with my disability. But that's not to say, because I have a disability, I can't love the child. I may not be able to care for the child physically, but mentally I can care for that child. And my family can, if I do have a child, please God, my family can also support me in the aspect of kind of helping me care for that child in general. Like, so as one of Clíona's previous questions, what does family mean to you? Without, like I said earlier on, without family you can't survive, basically. So family is the number one thing in life, and it's important for everyone to know that. And I find sometimes the government in Ireland, they not exclude people with disabilities, but push them to one side, and I think it's really not selfish on Ireland as a country. So I think we need to improve in that sense. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening to my presentation, and I hope you got some experience from it. So thank you, everybody.
Well, I think it's important to be with your family and friends, because I personally feel anyway that with my friends we're closer because of my disability, because they know that I rely on them. They know that if I can't do something, it's them that has to do it, you know? Like, they're not going to just leave me there. Whereas for someone else, it's just easier. You can just get up and walk away. Whereas I suppose they have this sense of responsibility, because they have to make sure I'm okay, which I think that brings us closer, because they know, they see the struggle as well as, like, I'm their friend, but they also see me on bad days, they see me on good days, they see me on every sort of day, and it's just, it's good to give people that insight into things. And as Alan said as well, your family, I think they have to be kind of stronger, because with the government, everything is a fight. you have to fight for everything you need. You have to, there's nothing you just get. You have to ring and ring and ring for everything. So I think that does make your family stronger and make you closer to them.
Thanks, Abby. I kind of hope you won't mind me sharing a bit of this, but in our lead up to this, Abby and I shared a moment about what it meant when you were relying on your family, in that at times it can cut an argument fairly short, quickly, because you've had an all-out row, you're really shouting and screaming at each other maybe about something, because you know, all families have these moments, and then you have to turn to them to ask for help for something for a second. So you're like, okay, pause that argument for a minute, we need to sort this, and then we can go back to our argument later. So I think that's also maybe something I'll share about it, what it meant for me.
That happens to me on a regular basis, but we get through it.
Okay, Mariana.
Related to that question, I was born in 1990, so at that time internet was not as well developed today. My parents were young parents. They were around 25 years old. So and I'm the oldest one in my house. I have a brother and a sister and a brother. And at that time, I didn't realize how hard it can be for them to have a daughter with disabilities after multiple delivered, when the other two died, and they don't have opportunity to take a break and get their breath, right? And when the medical and health services told them that I wasn't able to talk or to walk or even do anything by myself, but soon they found out in the research and in information and asked other people how they can give me more opportunities. Because, you know, when I was a child, I got the same responsibilities than my brothers and my sister at home. I have to wash my clothes, I have to put my clothes on, I have to make the bed as anybody at the home. So at that point, I felt very pressured, but right now I am very thankful with them because I realized that I can do things by myself, that I don't need to keep up, but I also need to ask help sometimes. And in relation with that, what parents with disabilities faced, in Meta, I have met Camila, which is an Uruguayan as well, and she is a deaf mother. And when his daughter gets the hearing test, I don't know if that is the correct word, I'm sorry. She found out that his daughter is a hearing person, and she said like, oh, so what I'm going to do if she likes music, because usually people told you to put slow music like Mozart or classic music to babies to stimulate them, right? And she didn't know the correct volume or what music is because she's deaf. And she asked other parents with hearing parents what are the correct procedures, because she said, I have to respect my daughter. I have to respect that she's also a hearing person. And of course, his mother language will be sign language, but she's also a hearing person. And right now, she's loving music. So she said, okay, motherhood is a challenge for everybody, not only for parents with disability. It's actually for everybody because we don't have like a manual inside our arms when we're born, right? But sometimes for parents with disabilities is different, and it's harder because professionals don't guide them and don't give them the correct information to promote our rights as we are children and young people. So I wanted to share that, and I am really pleased to be here I'm thankful with Summer School and Open Society Foundation as well.
Thanks very much. Thank you all for sharing stories of your families, and I hope they won't get you into any trouble, anything that you've shared. And we might turn over now to Siobhan for Q&A.